Good afternoon. I'm with VP of Exploration for White Gold Corp. Hi, Dylan. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I enjoyed our last conversation, getting an update on White Gold. So Dylan, the company put out a news release a couple weeks ago on some porphyry targets in the Minto-Carmacks copper belt. This region of the Yukon is actually getting a lot more attention here in 2025, and people are starting to remember that the Yukon has some copper, not just gold. So tell us about these target areas.
Yeah, so our exploration season in 2025 was kind of broken up into two halves. So there's two focuses for us. One was obviously the gold side of things with Golden Saddle and getting back to that flagship property and demonstrating that there's room to grow those. But the first half that was announced was actually the exploration work we wanted to do on some of our more advanced or further along the exploration kind of pipeline critical minerals targets. So that was, the Mount Hart target, the Looney target, and the Bridget target. So on three separate properties, three separate targets, all of which had, soil geochemistry grids done on them and have highlighted high copper, tungsten, moly values that we wanted to explore further and ultimately get ready for drilling. So this year we decided to run some IP geophysics on all three of those targets to define those anomalies and get them ready for the drill bit. So it's an exciting part of our exploration strategy, and so far we've released some results on one of those properties, that being the Bridget target on the Pedlar property. But like you said, it's an exciting time because I think there's a lot more attention coming back to the copper space and those critical minerals. So it's good timing.
So the target there at Pedlar has the right minerals showing up at surface in the soils. You have gold anomalies, silver, copper, moly, even some tungsten, lead, tellurium, et cetera, right? So it's the right suite of elements to indicate there's porphyry potential here. What are the other factors that have you pointing at this target?
Yeah, so initially it was the soil geochemistry anomaly that you've mentioned, but also the zonation that we see in those signatures on surface. That's what got us really excited. So what we did is we ran some IP geophysics, and I'll share my screen here just to give some listeners some more context.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Yep, I can see that.
So you can see the map here, and this was the figure put together for the press release. So you see the Pedlar property highlighted in pink there. It sits north of the Casino porphyry deposit, which, as people who are familiar, is a massive copper gold system just 35 kilometers south of us. So we released the results on this property. The other two properties, just to mention, that we did some results on are just left of that Lone Star label, that elongated property. That's one of the other properties we did IP geophysics on. And then just to the top left, that's the Nolan property, which hosts our Mount Hart target. Results pending on those two properties. But the focus of the results for the geophysics really was this Pedlar property. And what we got out of it was 24 chargeability axes that were identified by the survey, but 5 that have really come and shown themselves as high priority drill targets. So they got the right resistivity and chargeability contrast. So those targets that we see highlighted, these are the dotted blue circles. So there's 5 of them along this line that we ran dipole-dipole surveys on. And it just has the right ingredients where you have these high chargeability anomalies at depth, low chargeability anomalies associated with those, or low resistivity associated with those. And then on surface where we did those soil grids, you see the high copper, high moly, high tungsten values that really have us intrigued. So if I flip over to that, this was included in the press release as well. You can see we have chargeability on the top row with copper on the left and moly on the right. So you can see it's a significant moly signature overlaying these chargeability anomalies. And then on the left, you can see there's copper cores associated with those as well. And as we move down, then the second row here is metal factor. And then below that is resistivity. So when you stack all these layers of data that we've interpreted from soil geochemistry to metal factor to chargeability and resistivity, those are stacking up to be really interesting drill targets for these copper porphyry systems. So we're pretty excited to advance this to next year and get it drill ready.
All right, so what do you need to do to get it ready for the drill?
So part of what we're doing right now is we're taking these critical mineral copper assets and we're putting them in its own vehicle, so its own portfolio, in its own company, to extract that value. Because I think, you know, as people get familiar with the White Gold story, I think something that people are really starting to understand is we're probably not getting full value for just the gold assets that we have under the portfolio. Never mind all the critical minerals targets that are starting to shape up. So we really want to give it its own vessel to attract attention and funds for advancing them down the pipeline. You know, that's been kind of part of the strategy is, you know, it's a double-edged sword having so many properties with 21 properties, 300,000 hectares. It can be hard to know where to spend money and advance each property respectively. So this will kind of give it its own streamlined approach, which personally I'm quite excited about.
Yeah, the separate vehicle for the copper and lead, zinc, tungsten projects makes a lot of sense. Copper is a big conversation here, and the next decade is lining up to be pretty impactful for copper. Let's just put it that way. We got deficits for as far as the eye can see, so it makes sense. I mean, White Gold, that's always been the knock on the company every time I talk to other investors, and I think about why it languished for so many years down around 30 cents, 40 cents a share. It's just because the market wasn't valuing, it wasn't seeing all the assets in the company portfolio. So I think it makes a lot of sense to unlock these projects into a separate vehicle. So that is very exciting. I just want to ask you one more question about this setting in the Minto-Carmacks, region of the Yukon. Tell us about the Big Creek Fault and why this is an important structure for porphyries.
Yeah, so the Minto-Carmacks copper belt hosts two really critical faults. Is that Big Creek Fault and the 60 Mile Fault. So these are large transcrustal faults that have a big influence on these porphyry systems showing up. And these properties sit on that system, which is really exciting and gives us confidence that, it is conducive to hosting these porphyry systems. And the saying goes, the best place to look for another copper gold deposit is beside another copper and gold deposit. So it's a really prolific area, and I think it's part of the reason why Silver Standard back in the day, when Casino was discovered, they conducted a huge 14,000 plus silt survey with the goal of trying to look for another Casino deposit. And the other properties that they targeted and listed as high priority was that Bridget Target on Pedlar. And it was also, I believe, the Lucky Joe target, which is up by our Looney property. So, there's some historical background there to support and justify what we're doing here and what we're looking for.
And this has never been drilled, is that correct?
It's never been drilled. That's right.
Wow. Okay. And then so final question about the copper projects. What is the approximate timing of this new vehicle launching?
I think our guidance and our goal right now is Q1 of 2026 to get that out and into its own vehicle.
That's perfect. So the vehicle launches, let's say by the end of March. Company has money, plans a drill program, and then the season in the Yukon, June through September, and you get some holes in the ground, and yeah, that's very exciting. Okay, very good. So let's go back to Golden Saddle and the ARC and VG deposits, and what's the latest there, and how many holes are still pending there, Dylan?
So we've put out the one hole on Golden Saddle. There's 2 more holes pending on that drill program, and then 2 holes pending on the ARC. So I think since the last time we talked, we put out those drill results, and we were quite impressed by them. So the overall, target for the drill program on Gold Saddle this year was this mineralization you see hanging down toward the outer margin of the pit. It's the footwall breccia zone, which historically was intercepted and ran 4 grams per ton over 12 meters, but it was never really followed up on. So that became the target for this year's program and kind of the foundation for drilling. It was a smaller program. We only did about 2,500 meters, but we successfully intersected that footwall breccia zone with 6.89 grams per ton over 2.8 meters. But what really surprised us was this intercept through the main zone. So obviously we knew we were going to drill through the main zone while we targeted that footwall breccia. We filled in a gap of about 70 meters, and we intersected grade of 6.9 grams per ton over 50.2 meters. So that's high grade, obviously, and if you look to the hole above it and below it, those holes closest to that hole intersected 3 to 4 grams per ton over 50 or 60 meter intervals. So we effectively doubled the grade, which caught me off guard a little bit, but it's definitely a positive thing to run into, and it speaks a little bit to maybe the interpretation on the deposit and the fact that there are these high-grade tabular-like mineralization shoots existing in that overall mineralization envelope. So that kind of just makes us a little bit more excited to do some additional infill drilling next year, but also test that high-grade mineralization down dip and along plunge as well as along strike. So it's exciting to see. And then, of course, we intersected that 0.75 grams per ton over 3 meters in the hanging wall. So part of the story there came out of that remodeling exercise. So earlier in the year, we went from 2.3 million ounces to 3 million ounces. A lot of that came as modeled mineralization in the hanging wall of the Golden Saddle deposit. The other part of that story was that those mineralization wireframes weren't as continuous as we had liked or had hoped them to be. And a part of that was explained by unassayed drill core from historic drilling. So that was that 12% of 60,000 meters ever drilled on Golden Saddle that hadn't been assayed. So that'll be something that we targeted a little bit of in 2025. So those results will come out as well quite soon. But we look to tackle a big portion of that assaying early in 2026. And what that'll do is just change your economics of your open pit on the Golden Saddle, your strip ratio, and just add ounces overall to the resource estimate. So it was reassuring to get those results, even though it's under that 1 gram per ton mark, but still positive for the overall project.
So what would you say the main takeaways from 2025 are from you? I mean, obviously the bulk of the gold there at Golden Saddle is in what's called the main zone, but the footwall zone seems like it could be improved quite a bit.
I think there's room to grow the footwall zone quite a bit, and as you can see, it's still marginally within that open pit resource. But when you're talking about 4 grams per ton over 12 meters or potentially 7 grams per ton over 3 to 4 meters, that's high grade material that's suitable for underground mining. So not on its own, but when you start thinking about the main zone here and how that extends to depth, it's an exciting opportunity to extend the life of the mine. And, when you go from 10 or 12-year open pit production profiles to 20 plus years with an underground portion added to your mine, I think that could be quite a benefit to the overall project. And then the other takeaway just to mention is, we really focused this year on shifting that strategy back to our assets. So people who had followed the story the last 4 or 5 years had seen the company, drilling other properties like JPR or Chris Creek or Betty Ford, Betty White, and getting really impressive numbers and drill intercepts, but on minimal budget. So the strategy has always been to add to that target pipeline and drive value for the company. But now it's really kind of focused around growing that resource while advancing all those other properties to their respective phases in exploration. So I think the takeaway is that in 2025, we did some drilling on Gold Saddle and Arc, but we didn't do any drilling on Ryan Surprise or VG, which are two really open-ended deposits that are truly defined by the drilling that has been done on them. There's no drill holes to suggest that the mineralization in either of those deposits is cut off along strike or at depth. So that'll be a really interesting and exciting part of my drill program for next year, is to throw some drill meters at those two deposits to grow the ounces. Because right now, each of those only account for 300,000 ounces of the 3 million ounces with exceptional room for growth. So I think that would be something to really look forward to.
Just as a refresher, maybe as a speculative question, as far as the Golden Saddle main zone, what was the estimated, strip ratio of the envisioned pit?
I think it was 4.5 to 5.5 to 1,
Okay.
somewhere around that ballpark. Yeah.
Okay. So it's really important to get that down as much as possible. I mean, if we could get it under 3, that would be fantastic. And then the growth potential that you see at Golden Saddle. I mean, is it a fair statement to say that the target is to grow this to 2 million ounces?
At Golden Saddle?
Yeah.
So Golden Saddle's already at 2 million ounces on its own. And then the 4 of them combined is at 3 million ounces. But I think we see a very...
Oh, sorry. I was talking about the main zone. Sorry.
Oh, the main zone. Yeah, I think, what we see on the high-grade main zone and the fact that it's only been drilled down to a vertical depth of 500 meters, and we know it's an orogenic gold system, I think there's exciting opportunity for this thing to be drilled beyond 500 meters and grow it quite quickly.
Okay. So as a refresher, the Golden Saddle, comprises 3 different zones. Is that correct?
4 different zones, yeah. And just as a refresher, I'll share an image here just to give you some context of what that looks like. Just pop the screen up here. There we go. Let me know when it pops up on your end.
Yep.
So this figure here, we're zoomed in on the White Gold property. And you can see in the middle here is the Golden Saddle deposit. To the southeast is the Arc deposit. To the west is Ryan's Surprise in the center there. And then north across the river is the VG deposit. So Golden Saddle is 2 million ounces, and then 2 to 2.1 million ounces, and then the other 3 each account for 300,000 ounces in the resource estimate.
So in total, the White Gold project is about 3 million ounces.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And something of interest to note is that Ryan Surprise and just south of it is Uli's Ridge. Those 2 deposits have some drilling on them, but they sit in this 7-kilometer north-south striking golden soil anomaly that hasn't been extensively drilled. So something else that we're exciting about is you have all of this gold mineralization at surface, 0 to 500 meters in the case of Gold Saddle, but really in Ryan's Surprise and the other ones to a vertical depth of like 200 meters. You start to think if it's orogenic gold and it's structurally hosted, deep-seated plumbing systems, what happens at depth between these systems? Do these systems start to merge? Is there a higher grade zone that hasn't been tapped into? So that's something that gets me quite excited, is that, relatively speaking, these things have been drilled to a shallow depth.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. Yeah, so the reason why I'm asking that, because I'm thinking about how this will be built into a mine and how it will actually be operated as a mine. And what is obvious is you started the Golden Saddle main zone as a starter pit, and then you work out from there and get to the satellite pits essentially, and then the future operator will go underground. And so I'm just trying to get my head around what kind of tonnage is available there in the open pit setting.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head there with Gold Saddle and a high grade starter pit. That material comes right to surface, so I think there's an opportunity there to pay back your operation quite quickly, and then move on from there. We are doing a preliminary economic assessment, so that's already in the works. We're going through the motions now, and we plan to have that out in the first half of next year, hopefully sooner than later, hopefully around April. And we think that the numbers that are going to come out of that PEA is going to be a head turner. We're quite excited due to that high grade nature of the Golden Saddle deposit. We think it's going to be an impressive economic model for these deposits.
So PEA in 2026, and that will include all the drilling up until the end of this year, or will include more drilling?
That'll include up to the resource update we did at the beginning or middle of this year. It won't include this year's drilling. We had done internal economic studies over the last few years, and just based on the numbers, we really wanted to get that PEA out. We do get asked, why not wait until the end of next year's drilling? You're going to do a huge 25,000 to 30,000 meter drill program in 2026. Why not wait till the end of that? And really the short answer is that we just really want to demonstrate the economics on this property because we think that they're going to be impressive.
So 25,000 to 30,000 meter drill program in 2026. That's of a scale that White Gold has never done before. So tell us about that. When do you estimate it will start? How many rigs is that, et cetera?
Yeah, we're planning to start the program towards the end of May, beginning of June. And you're looking at probably 3 diamond drill rigs. And the focus will be growth. So we'll focus, 80% of those drill meters on Golden Saddle, Arc, Ryan's Surprise, and VG. But we'll reserve 20% of those drill meters for other things like this Ryan's Trend, which just hasn't had enough drilling to date, or properties like Betty to understand the mineralization at depth. And there's also this other target, Chris Creek, which they drilled last year. So on the left here, you see this extensive golden soil anomaly stretching east-west, and they did 4 drill holes on this trend. And later we identified that there was a structure sitting just south of these gold anomalies that the drilling unfortunately didn't tap into. So it leaves some room there for deeper drilling to tap into some higher grade mineralization. The drill results last year from this property, they intersected like 0.5 gram per ton material or a little bit less. So there's some smoke there, but it was shallow drilling, and there's some more opportunity to see the true potential there. So 20% of the budget will be reserved for these other gold targets we see around the portfolio.
Very good. Wow. So it's an exciting year. So really, if you could put a bow tie on the conversation for us, Dylan, what would you state the catalysts and key milestones are for White Gold in 2026?
I think the catalyst that we expect to see are the remainder of the drilling. So the 2 drill holes on Gold Saddle and the Arc, and then the assay program on 5 to 6 holes to demonstrate the mineralization in the hanging wall. Those results will come out as well. And then we'll have our PEA coming out for the property in the first half of next year, hopefully around April, end of April timeframe. And then hopefully we can get the Spinout company structured and spun out as well in Q1 of next year. And then I think that the big needle mover here will be this 30,000 meter drill program focused on resource growth. And then outside of that, I think just Yukon in general and the support that we're seeing from the government, the recent election, supportive of mining, and then as well as, Coffee being 25 kilometers south of us, and Forte announcing recently that they plan to have a production decision by 2027. I think those are all really attractive catalysts for White Gold.
You closed a $23 million financing in October. Just to be clear, does that mean the company is fully funded for the year?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we'll be fully funded for what we intend to do in 2026.
Dylan, thank you so much for your time. This was a great update on White Gold.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. It was a pleasure.